Sandra Morrisette, 5 Fairview Heights. I came up the last meeting. We have some new faces in the audience, so I wanted to address the issue with LMR disposal as well as ask a few questions of Town Council. As we know, Phillipsburg has tried for years to redevelop the area along the Delaware River, and we are closer now than we've ever been. Mayor Ellis has been working with the state and investors. Main Street is the focal point where people could spend their days poking around bookshops, restaurants, shops. But you on the Phillipsburg Town Council has other plans, it appears. In the June 12th Town Council work session, in which the legal notice stated that action will be taken, Town Council passed the first reading of Ordinance 2018-10 to amend the Riverfront Redevelopment Plan Section 3.9 to permit storage of waste disposal containers and trucks in the zone. LMR Disposal is the beneficiary of this ordinance. It is my understanding that historically work sessions are primarily for bringing ideas together to form policies, ordinances, resolutions and action plans. Then the product of those Town Council work sessions has historically had the action or vote taken during Town Council meetings. Any claim of transparency seems disingenuous at best when action items are being executed with a vote during normally poorly attended work sessions. I think the residents of Phillipsburg should be aware of what is happening and also should be attending work sessions so items are not being passed without their knowledge. We were told at the June 12th work session that the second reading of Ordinance 2018-10 would be during the next Town Council meeting. It was not. Nor is Ordinance 2018-10 being considered at this Town Council meeting on July 3rd. Just curious why that may be. Will you perhaps be reading it for the second time and perhaps passing it at the next Town Council work session? Since some of the attendees at tonight's Town Council meeting may not be aware of the situation, here it is for you. Alpha refused LMR Disposal's expansion request in March 2017, so LMR Disposal began operations here in violation of local zoning. LMR has continued operating despite a zoning violation notice, cease and desist letters, and threat of court summons. The Town Council asked that any violation notices be withheld from enforcement actions and that LMR would be given time to proceed with the redevelopment study before the Phillipsburg Planning Board. Research shows garbage trucks can be 80 to 100 decibels, and the Federal Transit Administration has measured trucks at 88 decibels, 50 feet from the source. Town Code 625-74A states, where the proposed use is adjacent to residential uses, sound level should not exceed 65 decibels from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and 50 decibels from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And where the proposed use is adjacent to commercial uses, sound level should not exceed 65 decibels. As of now, LMR is also in violation of these other town codes. Section 625-73 states a trucking business whose primary business activity is hauling for hire is not permitted in Phillipsburg. Excuse me, is there something wrong with the sound system?
No, it's fire.
Thank you. That was worrying me.
It's distracted the police officer at the door.
Section 624-7A relates to excessive noise. This was a complaint in Alpha. Section 625-748 states there cannot be emissions or odorous gases or other odorous matters in such quantity as to be readily detectable without instruments. Another concern by Alpha residents. LMR disposal would also violate a regulation on truck traffic, which is limited to no more than 4 round trips per day per business. Yet their attorney, Mr. Peck of Florio, Perucci, Steinhardt and Capelli, has stated that 30 to 40 trucks will be entering and exiting the site per day. In Alpha, their operations began at 3 a.m. I went down to this location this past weekend. It is located at Karls Glass, and the ground goes really far back. There is more than enough room for 30 to 40 trucks to be operating there. Normally, businesses would approach the Phillipsburg Land Use Board, also known as the Planning Board, and plead their case for a variance change. Neither LMR or their attorney came to the hearing they scheduled with the Planning Board. The Planning Board unanimously rejected LMR's requested zoning variance and recommended Town Council do the same. You did not. Ordinance 2018-10 requires a second reading to pass. The public was not given the entire ordinance to read, but rather only 2 small sections. Town Council did, however, amend that amendment to add the word empty to describe the state of the waste disposal containers and trucks. Empty garbage containers and trucks still smell. They still make lots of noise when they start up, and they still leak, which was another voiced and ignored concern. The ordinance needs to be read and passed a second time for it to become law. As I mentioned, the second reading was supposed to be on June 19th. However, it was not, and it is not on tonight's agenda. So please, please, spread the word. Come to Town Council meetings as well as their work sessions. Protest. They may yet hear you and yet inform LMR Disposal we do not want them in our town's planned, cleaned, bright future.
Yes, please. Yes, absolutely.
I'm just going to make a comment regarding the planning board. You are aware the redevelopment plan passed the planning board with that item added in it, correct?
What I am aware of is the fact
You are aware of that, yes or no?
what you have in the plans, I do believe, Council Vice President.
Yes or no?
Excuse me.
Why yes or no?
What I do believe is that their containers are allowed there for garbage pickup. That is a very different thing. If you go to Belvedere, you can see LMR all over the town. My concern is the future plan here to eventually pass over our Public Works Department and bring in LMR Disposal also, as they are in Harmony and other places?
If I may, the latter part of your statement couldn't be further from the truth.
I'm glad to hear that, because we have very worthwhile employees there.
Oh, without a doubt, you will not find no argument with me.
Okay. The second thing I had asked was, when will this be considered, the second reading?
It will be considered on July 17th. Just so you understand, we had a replacement clerk at that point in time. I don't believe it was passed over. I would hate to place fault upon anyone, so I will take the blame for not realizing that it was not on the agenda. So it will be on there on July 17th for a second reading.
Okay. Now, Town Council members, I'm just curious if you would also perhaps individually speak as to why you think that a garbage company is the best business to have on our main street, with the trucks leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning and loading up.
What I will do is I'm going to defer to Councilman Lutz, because I feel that I've been rude, because he did ask me to address you. So I would like to defer to Councilman Lutz.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions to ask you. Have you been back on Howard Street?
Yes, I have at times.
You have in times. Have you seen grease and oil and dirt on Howard Street?
At times, yes.
At times. Well, you're here arguing about LMR. What about Atlantic States? Now, Atlantic States, if you go back there during the day, there's 8 to 15 trucks sitting on Howard Street waiting to be dumped off. Meaning all that grease and oil and everything, when it rains, it goes right down into the drains.
Councilman Lutz?
Now, you're talking about the noise and everything else. What do you think about us back on Mercer Street and people on South Main Street when the trucks have to turn onto Stockton Street to get back on Mercer Street, sometimes knocking a pole, sometimes doing damage, but that's okay? You're saying that that's okay? Years ago, all those trucks used to be lined up on Cigarette Street. Used to be lined up on Cigarette. This is before your time. They used to be lined up. Well, people started to complain that all the grease and oil and everything from the trucks are laying on Cigarette Street. Then they moved them back to Howard Street. Now, they've been back to Howard Street, I would say, maybe 15 years or better. And every day except Friday, there's 8 to 10, 8 to 15 trucks waiting to be dumped into Atlantic States. But you're saying LMR is no good, but what about Atlantic State? Atlantic State has given us, and we praise Atlantic State. I'm not mocking Atlantic State whatsoever. We praise Atlantic State for what they give to the youth center, what they give to the town, and what they do for the town. I'm not mocking them, and I'm not doing. But you're comparing LMR to Atlantic States. They're doing the same thing that LMR's do.
Excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
Lutz, I am not. This is two different things, and here is why. Here is why. LMR Disposal is a brand-new company coming in onto our main street where we are hoping to redevelop.
Okay?
Fortunately, unfortunately, Atlantic States has been here for many, many years. It was here before I arrived in the town.
Right?
It is the town council's responsibility to monitor what is going on with Atlantic States. What you are trying to do...
It's the mayor. The mayor, that's everyday situation, so it's up to the mayor.
So you are suggesting that a brand new company should be accepted onto Main Street primarily because we already have Atlantic States here, which is not on Main
It's not
Street.
a new company because White Rock Chemical was dumping chemicals into that ground for 15 years. Now, the person comes in and cleans it up and does everything he possibly can to make it look nice, and which he is going to make it look nice. He's going to refurbish Karls, all the glass at that old dilapidated building and everything else. He's going to do a nice job. And now you're saying because White Rock left and LMR is coming in, that is a new company. After White Rock has been dumping there for 15 years.
I will defer back to my original point. That is town council's issue.
If I may.
And it should have, and may I just say one more thing, Mr. Fulper? I know I've extended my time.
Yes, ma'am.
This company is in violation of not one, not two, but quite a few town ordinances. That is a huge concern to me, and it should be to the rest of the town folks here. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Morrisette, if I may, how long, and the reason I ask is not that I'm not being smart or contrite, how long have you been a resident of Phillipsburg?
Sorry, you know that well.
No, I really don't know.
No, you did, because my husband just told you that.
Believe it or not,
It was in 1995 we moved here, and we chose to live
absolutely,
here.
and thank you. The reason I ask is because I was curious if you remember the time when there was a booming industrial, it was the Howard Street area, the Mercer Street area, the area where the junkyard was, where LMR is behind. There was a lumber company back there. There was a plastics company back there. Trucks were to and fro constantly, and we didn't have any issues that people are claiming that we're going to have right now. With regard to the garbage trucks, we have garbage trucks being stored right now at the Armory, and the residents on Bate Street, the residents on Heckman, the village apartments, and those on Marshall attending the college have yet to call council to complain, and they actually have garbage in them. So I fail to see, I don't want to say I fail to see the merit in your complaint, because you are a resident of this town. You have every right to come up here and make that complaint, and I respect that. But what I will say is that I don't believe that LMR is doing anything different than those in the past that made this town prosperous with industrial growth. I mean, we have had companies there in the past, and there's never been an issue.
This is not industrial growth that we're talking about. It's not a lumber yard or anything else. It did not exist there before.
Sure.
LMR extension plan was not approved by Alpha.
But
Channel
we're not Alpha, that was
69
Phillipsburg.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's a shame that they moved from Alpha, where the residents did complain, to here.
Where they're not complaining.
Perhaps because they have not yet figured this out. Because they're not at full capacity and they're not running them all the time yet.
Well, I can't speculate on something that has not happened. And if I could, I'd be a rich man.
Actually, I think from the conversations I've already heard from at least 3 people on this town council, you have pre-made up your minds, and that is your right.
I'm business friendly.
That isn't a business that we want for a
Well,
redevelopment of a town that we're hoping for.
So
Thank you very
understand-
much.
Mrs. Moore said it's not a business that you want, and I understand that that's how you feel. Thank you. State your name and address for the record.
Hello, David Morrisette again, and I still live at 5 Fairview Heights, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Since 1995. I hadn't planned to, but since the last conversation with LMR and the discussion, a couple of things I just want to state real quickly. At the planning board meeting, there was discussion of waste disposal containers. And that discussion, I've actually verified my recollection of the discussion with several other people that attended that planning board meeting. That planning board meeting, that discussion on the waste disposal containers was specifically referencing waste disposal containers being able to be stored for restaurants and those types of businesses where they would be able to put the rubbish out. A resident came up and actually said, hey, I'm really worried because this conversation on waste disposal containers sounds like we're letting LMR in. And the resounding answer to that question, that query, was absolutely not. We are not discussing that area for the waste disposal containers. It is only the area down there at the riverfront. And it is on tape.
You can read page 47. It's not. So
It's not specified on the minutes, but it is on the tape.
read the redevelopment plan. It's right there.
Oh, on the redevelopment plan, it does have waste disposal containers listed there, but it doesn't have trucks. It doesn't have the authorization for LMR to come in. In fact, the entire council voted against LMR coming in after after LMR and the attorney didn't show up for their hearing.
This council or the prior?
The entire planning board voted against it.
Oh, okay.
All the people up there that were at that planning board meeting actually voted against LMR coming in. Okay? Now, I'm not saying anything wrong happened here, but can I ask a question or two?
Please.
Okay. Councilman Lutz, I think I have you on tape. In fact, I have you on tape stating that you actually went and visited LMR and you actually had a conversation with them. Is that correct?
Correct.
And discussed everything.
For the record, Mr. Morrisette, I just want you to understand that you can ask, they can voluntarily not answer.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. All right. Is that okay? And Council President Fulper, I believe you've actually had conversations with representatives from LMR?
Yes, I have. I've driven down there myself to view the site.
Okay. And have any other council members here actually had conversations with any representatives from LMR?
I'm going to answer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Number one, the mayor called me and told me about LMR and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that what they're doing, they're taking part of the Norfolk Southern land and this and that and this and that. So it was just about dawn. And I wanted to see myself, okay?
Sure.
I went down there, I saw nothing was wrong with what they done. They cleaned that place up from white rock chemical to what it is now. It's like 200%. 200% of what they've done. I turn my car around and I go out and here comes a garbage truck heading right at me. And it was the owner and he asked me what I was doing there. And that's why I always say when he's here, we met at a funny situation. And he laughs all the time. I do too. But I explained why I was here, and I said, I went back because the mayor said that this was being done, and that was being done, and that's how I met the man. I didn't go to his office, I didn't sit down with him, I didn't see anything. When I was back there, I'm telling you again, it's like 200% neat and clean and done. And when I was back there was only empty containers. I don't know where you people are coming up with garbage containers and everything else. Even in the minutes, it states he can only store empty containers back there. That's what he was saying. And that's in the minutes. If you look on your camera, that's what it said. So thank you.
Okay, so normally, the normal procedure is if somebody wants a variance or a change to a development plan, they go to the planning board. And how many folks here have ever been on the planning board? Councilwoman, I know, and Council President. Okay, so you guys know the routine, right? So you go to the planning board, and we all know why the planning board process is in place. Is that right? The planning board process is in place. Did you want to answer? I'm sorry. You look like
No, I'm just actually, if you could, rather than form it in the phrase of a question, I'd be more, I understand what you're getting at, so if you could just make your point for the crowd.
So the planning board process is in place so that if anybody wants a variance or some kind of a change into the established or regulations, they come before the planning board and they discuss their case, why they want a change. And they do that so that their issues are out in the public. And there can be a public discussion as to why they should have a change. Well, that didn't occur because LMR, nor a representative for LMR, ever came to the planning board meeting. It was stone cold silence because nobody was there. So there was no way to discuss with them why what they want to do might make sense and be of a beneficial use to the town. So the planning board obviously didn't see a beneficial use, and you've already heard a number of reasons why it wouldn't be beneficial. And interestingly, you guys, I know, Council President, you've done the planning board training.
Yes, sir.
And Councilwoman, I know you're still up for that. So when you go to training, one of the things they tell you on the planning board is that when you go for training, you may go and visit a site. You can look at the site. You can say hello to the guy there. But under no circumstances are you to discuss the variance that is coming up before the planning board. And the reason for that is you are not to discuss it because that issue is supposed to be discussed in public and put in minutes and put on tape.
Are you asking if we discussed the variance? Because I didn't, in my discussion with him, I didn't discuss the variance.
I've never spoken to him.
So you never discussed the idea of amending the redevelopment plan?
No, sir.
See, that's the reason that you don't have anything more than a hello, if you even talk to them at all, because you don't know what people talk about.
Sure. Well, I'm not going to stop discussing anything with the residents in town just because other people would like to speculate upon what I may or may not have said.
You don't have
So-
that. You don't have that obligation as a town council member. As a planning board member, you do.
Correct, and that I can understand. Just for full transparency, when I had met with LMR, I welcomed them to the neighborhood. I wanted to know more about his business, what it was that he was doing, and quite frankly, I wanted to know what they were going to do with the Karls Auto Glass building, because it looked run down. I had a question. You know, again, it's a new business. It's here in Phillipsburg. I ran on a platform of being business friendly. I want business here. I understand not every. I can't tell you that they can't come here because they're a trash company. It's discriminatory in my opinion. I'm not going to tell you what kind of business you can or can't have.
Well,
But that's just me. I don't speak for all of
right,
council.
you don't speak for,
Yes, sir.
and I don't speak for everybody either.
No, I understand.
But I do know that the vision of the people that I speak to in the town, the vision of the people on the planning board, this company, in terms of the business they're going to be doing, does not fit in with our long-term goals for the riverfront redevelopment. The riverfront redevelopment is getting a seed right now down there at Union Square, hopefully. That's going to go through. And it is going to spread. And I may not live to see it, but there are people in this audience that will live to see Phillipsburg transform and become the new place that people want to come.
Mr. Morrisette, I appreciate your vision. I do have to cut you off because my colleagues are
Thank you.
telling me. You're very welcome.